Welcome to the facelifted BMW X5, an update of a car that is one of my favorites in the BMW range. And there's a couple of reasons for that. For one, in a sea of extravagant designs that BMW has been putting out lately, this one keeps it simple and keeps it quite honest and neat. And I quite like that, but more on that later. However, the other reason is that it neatly walks the tightrope between BMW's smaller SUVs, the X1 and the X3, and its bigger, more expensive ones like the iX and the X7. But these days, this car has also moved up in the world. This one costs over 1 crore of rupees. And with an increase in price comes an increase in expectations. So, is this still that deft middle ground, or is it something entirely different now? First things first, let's have a look at what's new outside. Now, where else do you start a conversation about BMW styling than with the grille, because they're just so controversial now these days, aren't they? Well, this one is massive and it's even illuminated so it glows in the night if you want to show it off a little bit more. But relative to the size of the SUV, I don't think it's that bad. It doesn't stretch too far wide, it doesn't stretch too far down, and I think it suits this car really well. It's even tipped forward a little bit for that sporty look. This is an M Sport, of course, so they have this M Sport bumper down at the bottom that looks really aggressive. And over here you'll find reprofiled headlamps with new blue accents that really stand out. Now, as we move over to the side, it's 21-inch wheels across the board this time, and that's a bold move because that is no doubt going to have an impact on the way this car rides. As we move over to the side, the silhouette is largely the same and you get that same X5 squat stance that it's always been known for. Around the back here, you'll see a version of the BMW Hofmeister Kink finished in black this time on the M Sport, and around the back here again 21-inch wheels but fat 315 section tires. Now that is really supercar territory when it comes to tire size. Now finally, as we move over to the tailgate, you'll see a new design for the tail lamps. It's sort of this fork-shaped thing, and yes, like the previous pre-facelift car, it doesn't look classic BMW, but it's got its own look that's quite distinctive, very 3D, and it's got these animated indicators as well. And finally, the tailgate, as always with the X5, is a split unit for that little bit more convenience. But what do you think about the X5's looks? Let us know down in the comments, and if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to Autocar India. Now let's go check out the inside. The interior of the X5, much like with the X7, has been given a number of updates to make it cleaner and more minimalist. And I like some of them, and some of them I'm not too sure about. I like the cleanliness, the clean new look. They've taken away the gear lever. In place of it is this toggle switch and the crystal effect. Quite like that, it's not too bad and it really cleans up this area. I like that they've kept the iDrive controller even though this has been a touchscreen for quite a while. And yes, speaking of which, it's the new 2-screen layout that you see in a lot of new BMWs, a 14-inch screen over there and a 12-inch screen here. It's very crisp, very modern looking, but it seems to have swallowed up a few too many features. You still get a volume control, but the AC controls are all inside the touchscreen now. And moreover, while there are these tiles like a smartphone or a tablet, there are just too many of them. The old BMW iDrive system was a whole lot simpler. Now, as for the way it looks, I like the cleaner dashboard look, like I said, and this rich open pore wood, it really feels like open pore because there are actually holes in it. You could scrape your finger on it. And down here you have this glass effect with backlit X5 written over there, and these toggle knobs to control the AC. I'm not too sure about these because you can't really see what you're doing and just fiddle around and hope for the best. And moreover, the ones on the outside, they're very flimsy and they feel like they could break very, very soon. Other than that though, quality is typically BMW superb. Everything works with a nice damped feel, and particular mention has to go to these seats, which are just so superbly adjustable in every way. They're heated, they're cooled, and they even have shoulder support, which is something I really, really love. A quick look at the features list and you'll see that the X5 remains a well-equipped luxury SUV. In addition to the front seat heating and cooling, there's also a memory function, and you get stuff like a 360-degree camera and auto parking assist. But what's new is BMW's reverse assist function that remembers your last few meters of slow driving and can autonomously reverse out the exact same way in case it's too difficult for you to do. This M Sport version gets a heads-up display and air suspension that can be set to 5 different levels. The 16-speaker Harman Kardon sound system is superb, and you also get soft closed doors, adaptive LED headlamps, and a panoramic sunroof. On the safety front, you get 8 airbags and a whole host of electronic safety aids like ESC, TCS, hill descent control, cornering, brake control, and tire pressure monitoring. And while there isn't a full ADAS suite, you do get some active safety features like lane keep assist, auto emergency braking, and driver drowsiness detection. Even at its medium suspension height, it's quite a step up into the X5's cabin, and in the back seat, you'll find plenty of legroom, footroom, headroom, and particularly width. Set a bit higher than the ones up front, the rear seats are comfortable if a bit upright with no backrest adjustment. As we've said many times before though, if you've chosen a BMW, chances are you want to do some of the driving yourself. Now, though the interior of the X5 may be so new, especially compared to the one that went before, sitting in this driver's seat immediately feels familiar. You see, when it comes to BMWs, even when they make their biggest SUVs, it makes you want to get in and drive hard and drive fast. While in a lot of SUVs, you want to tower over all and sundry for that commanding feeling, but in the X5, you want to lower the seat down like a sports car and drive it like a sports car. Yes, the bonnet is quite tall, but the windows are quite low, so you do still get a pretty good view out, but you also can sit quite low and enjoy this car as it's meant to. Once again, these fabulous seats hold you in place nicely, and as always, you get this rather chunky M Sport steering wheel. And it doesn't take long into driving before you rue the lack of physical AC controls, because weirdly, while the AC can cool this cabin very well, if you set it to auto mode, it simply does not. It never quite builds up the cooling level that you want. So you always feel like increasing either the fan speed or lowering the temperature. And that means going into the touchscreen. Now, as more and more manufacturers are abandoning diesel engines, BMW is one that has stuck with it. And as such, this car does still get the marvelous 3-liter straight-six turbo diesel, which is the one I'm driving right now. The X5 uses the less powerful 30D state of tune, but that still means you get a solid 286 horsepower and 650 Nm of torque. There's also a mild hybrid system which provides 12 horsepower of e-boost when needed. X-Drive all-wheel drive is standard, and power is meted out via the superb ZF 8-speed torque converter auto. But the numbers don't tell the whole story, because there are a lot of engines that are as powerful or more powerful than this one. But the way a BMW straight six, even a diesel, just revs and just shoots you forward is something else. It's incredibly eager, and the 8-speed automatic gearbox just complements it so well. It's smooth, it's eager to shift, and it won't bother you and just work in the background if you want to drive in a relaxed manner. There is, however, a little bit of a contradiction. If there's a slight downside to this engine's eagerness and high revving nature, it's that you can hear it from quite low down. So even at the lowest of throttle inputs, you will hear a bit of a murmur. It's not a bad sound, but in a luxury SUV that costs over ₹1 crore, I suppose ultimate silence is what you really want. And if you're in that camp, maybe you're better off going with the petrol. The reason you might want to stick to the diesel though, especially with so few of them still around, is better fuel efficiency. Rated at 12 kpl on the ARAI cycle and with an 80-liter fuel tank, you have the potential to get about 900 kilometers of range. You couldn't do that with the petrol. Similarly, there might be those who feel that it's a bit too eager for a luxury car. The responsiveness is just a bit too much. Well, if you dial it down to Eco Pro mode, that sorts it out quite a bit. It dulls responses considerably, and if it's just your chauffeur at the wheel, they probably work out best that way. If you're driving though, comfort or sport is what it has to be. If this engine was responsive on its own, when you put it into sport mode, it's an entirely different animal. So not only is BMW holding onto diesels, it's making them fun as well. This is not just a diesel engine you buy with your head, it's one you can easily buy with your heart as well. Responses are instantaneous, the gear shift is sharp and quick. And the way this thing just launches forward, this massive SUV just heads for the horizon, it's quite unbelievable. So yes, the performance is certainly a big draw, but let's get back down to earth and look at things ordinary luxury SUV buyers would. Now the move up to 21-inch wheels, I was really worried about the ride, but I'm kind of impressed. The air suspension does take care of a lot of it. It doesn't feel too much worse than the old 20-inch wheels that they offered on the previous car. Yes, there is definitely some lumpiness given how wide those tires are, and you can feel the large rims thunk through on the sharpest of stuff, but all things considered, I don't think a lot of people would mind this too much. Certainly not the best ride out there, but not too bad either. In comfort mode at least, what the air suspension does is try its best to emulate that wafty Rolls-Royce-like ride quality. It certainly feels nice and soft, but then the big wheels and tires get in the way of making it ultimately cushy. And if the air suspension's ability to create comfort out of those massive wheels and tires was impressive, you should see the way it does handling. In sport mode, this thing hunkers down and body control gets a whole lot tighter. Yeah, there is still a little bit of body roll, you can't escape physics. But to get this sort of handling out of a big SUV like this, you'd have to go Porsche Cayenne and upwards. It's that good. And if you're thinking the people that would buy a luxury SUV costing over ₹1 crore would only ever sit in the back, this is the exception to the rule before you get to full-on sports SUVs. Which brings me back to my question at the very start of this video. Does this car, even as upmarket as it's moved, still occupy that sweet spot in BMW's range? I think it absolutely does. Because while it's gotten even more luxurious and loaded up with tech, it still remains dynamite to drive. You can't deny that the X5 has now gotten quite steep. At 95 lakh to 1.08 crore rupees ex-showroom, it's a full 20 lakh more than when the pre-facelift model launched just 4 years ago. And even though that's the case with this entire segment, it is still a massive jump. The good thing is that the X5 feels suitably upgraded with this facelift as well. In fact, it's safe to say that choosing the bigger X7 over this now only comes down to aesthetic preference and if you really need that last row of seats. Expensive it may be, but the X5 might just be the most well-rounded BMW of them all.